So while I have the bike up and running and in one piece, I thought I would do a video discussing the pros and cons of this build and giving you some insight on how to build your own 212 motorized bike. First off, let's discuss frames. Because this is such a large engine, you need quite of a large frame to accommodate. And so you can pretty much use a felt faker frame. The standard like Huffy Cranbrook men's beach cruisers, those are a little bit iffy, but really the felt faker frame is one of the only frames I know of that is that you cannot go wrong. Now there's two different types of mounting your engine: horizontally mounting it and vertically. Now, horizontally mounting it is a lot less space efficient. So that means it takes up a lot more space in the frame for mounting it. And so horizontally mounting your engine, you'll run into space issues. You might be able to cram it into something like a Huffy Cranbrook. It just barely fits on a felt faker frame. I tried it with my horizontal mount. Now, as you can see, I'm using a vertical engine mount. And as you can see, there's about 2 inches on the bottom of the frame. It's touching the top of the frame there. So I technically have about 2 inches of clearance on the bottom there. On a beach cruiser, you would have about 1 inch of clearance. So not much, but you could still fit a 212 with a vertical engine mount. Now, another thing to discuss about frames is the strength tolerances. Now, a felt faker frame, which is what I'm using, I'm surprised it held up. This is a very strong frame, even though it's aluminum. As you can see, the tubing is very thick and sturdy. This is the weakest part of the engine, really, the rear triangle. So the seat tube, the chain stay, and the seat tube, or the seat stay, I guess. I don't know I don't know this one. But as you can see, it's very sturdy. I would be very hesitant to put a 212 engine on an earlier mountain bike. Those typically have aluminum frames, and even though they're big in the center here to mount an engine, the rear triangle is very skinny tubing, and they're usually made out of either steel or whatever, or steel or aluminum. I would stay away from those. Beach cruisers, I'm a bit hesitant too, but they are made out of steel. And I mean, while the rear triangle is a bit flimsier, it makes up for it in steel. So, I mean, you can go with a felt faker or a beach cruiser frame. Now, let's talk about wheels. So, of course, with big power, you need sturdy wheels. These are $150 wheels. Very good option. They're 10 gauge wheels. They only have a 1 cross spoke pattern, which is not ideal for absolute strength. But compared to the 12 gauge spoked 3 cross pattern wheels that were on this bike, these are much better in terms of strength. And also, before on the 12 gauge spoked wheels, when you would hit the gas, just smash it, you could feel the side-to-side play, the give of the spokes. Even though they were tight, you could still feel the give to them, and it was very unsettling. This, however, none of that, because these are so much thicker. These hubs are also fantastic because they have sealed bearings on the inside, so that's fantastic for smoothness and also so much less rolling resistance. Yeah, and you can use a free hub on there, and there's disc brake mounts on there to mount your sprocket, all that good stuff. The front wheel is also the same, but yeah. So these wheels, some say, oh, they're not worth it. I highly recommend them. They've done great so far. They're, I think, $150 on Amazon. I'll post a link to those in the description. Now, you really can't use any lesser wheels than these, or they'll not do well. Now, for mounting such an engine, you really need a sturdy setup. The thing that I found here, I think I have yeah. So this is the horizontal mount. I mean, I've chopped it a little bit and whatever, but this is about what the horizontal mounts look like. And these will work depending on the frame and all that stuff and your patience. These will work. Half of them, most of the time, they need modifications just to begin to fit. And so these are, one, a headache, but as you can see here, look how thin that is. Look how flimsy that is. Look how thick that is. And so even if you get these correct, they have so much more give into them, and they're also so much of a pain to deal with. And I just highly recommend getting a vertical engine mount to begin with. These, I believe, are like $60. The vertical engine mounts now are almost $300, $280 or something. But you don't have to deal with all the crap that you have to with these. These bolt on with 4 bolts, and it's like that. Now, one thing I do have to address, I've seen a lot of people asking, oh, where did I get this engine mount? This engine mount is no longer produced. This was produced by Gas Bike. And as you can see, it doesn't have a built-in jack shaft. It's just an engine mount. And so what this does is it narrows down and limits my ability to run any other clutch, any other transmission. This Death Row CVT, while it's a good transmission, is the only thing I can use. If this thing bites the dust, I can't use anything else. And that's because these 212 bikes, they require a jack shaft built into the transmission. Well, the new engine mounts have a built-in jack shaft, so you can use like a centrifugal clutch, you can use a standard 30 series CVT, you can use the 3D manual transmissions, all of those with the built-in jack shaft on the engine mounts. So that's also a plus. Now, that's why I recommend the vertical engine mount over the horizontal, because not only is the horizontal a pain, it's flimsy, and I mean, you can't get clutches for it. Sure, you can mount the engine on there, but how are you going to drive the rear wheels? So, I mean, granted, not a lot of people are willing to pay $300 for a piece that just mounts your more expensive piece of equipment to your frame. But at the same time, what do you expect? I mean, you're literally building a motorcycle. $300 is just a rock in the bag, or whatever that saying goes. So, highly recommend doing that. Now, forks. You need something sturdy. I see a lot of people just running like beach cruiser, run-of-the-mill forks, crappy forks they buy on Amazon. Those are not going to last, especially cheap suspension forks. I noticed the lowers on like the stanchions and stuff, they end up vibrating apart, and they can even break off. So if you're going to get a cheap fork, get one of these cheap triple tree forks, as they are pretty dang sturdy. Now, another thing I want to note is you need good brakes on a 212 bike. I mean, these are the Smolik Performance pit bike brakes setup, and I love them. This thing stops on a dime, but unless you're gonna spend $400 on some good like downhill mountain bike 4-piston calipers, this is like really the minimum you can use. I mean, anything less than this, and you're not stopping this bike. It might not look like it, but this bike weighs almost 100 pounds. And so if you add another 150-pound rider onto this, that's a lot of weight. I mean, granted, it's not as much as like a motorcycle, but you still need a lot of braking power. So with that being said, do not cheap out on brakes. But yeah, other pros, cons is that, well, it's expensive. What do you expect? You're building a motorcycle. As I said, this isn't a cheap hobby, especially if you're trying to get big power. Another con is that while the engine is extremely reliable, other parts on the bike are going to wear out a lot quicker, especially when you start adding power on top of the already insane Predator 212 base. Other things to note is that this thing is dangerous. I mean, this thing, even a stock 212 engine, without all the mods I've done to it, you can get upwards of 50 miles per hour super easily. I'm talking like that. And so you're going to need serious ride wear, or else one little slip and you're done. I mean, we are talking about a pretty much bicycle here. Now, pros, exactly what I just said. This thing is dangerously fast. And that's appealing to a lot of people. Me personally, I'm not going for absolute speed on this bike. It's more just comfort cruiser. So I'm gearing it super short on this. But yeah, so that's one pro. Another pro, the engine is extremely reliable. While a lot of the bike components, they wear out quicker, the engine is insanely reliable. Now, you can make the smaller two-stroke engines, the 66, the 85 cc's, two-stroke engines reliable, but they take a lot of work, a lot of maintenance. These 212 engines, they're literally made to abuse and abuse. And they're only like $110 from Harbor Freight. So you can get the $10 warranty or whatever. And if you break it or whatever, you can replace it. But I mean, this thing has seen a ton of wear and tear. Before I put this engine on there, it was on a used snowblower, and then it was on a mini bike, and then whatever. So this thing is like 7 years old, and I opened it up, not a scratch on it. It's amazing. So this thing has definitely seen a lot of life into it, and it definitely has a lot more. So that's one more perk, is the reliability. Number 3 perk, and probably the best of them all, not only does this thing have power straight out of the gate, but you can modify these things like crazy. You will not believe. There's people squeezing 23 plus horsepower out of these, which is nuts compared to like all the other stuff I've seen. So yeah. Now, if I didn't mention anything, please let me know. I'll be sure to cover it. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm trying to post more like riding videos of this thing, but it's really hard because my GoPro just crapped out on me. So yeah, but thank you again for watching. Have a good one.